Good day, guys. Today I'm on page 37 and I'm going to read chorus. Poor Troy, 10,000 men are dead for one woman and her hated marriage bed. So here Euripides is using this moment to lament Troy. And here, look at the phrase poor Troy, poor Troy. Euripides is personifying Troy as a person. Perhaps chorus is implying that Andromache's pain is Troy's pain as well, and that might be the reason why Euripides is using that phrase "poor Troy" mainly to personify Troy. And chorus stresses the point that 10,000 men are actually dead for one woman, and who is that one woman? Definitely it is Helen and her hated marriage bed. Talthybius, come on, boy, you must break that embrace now, in spite of your mother's agony, and climb the walls to the highest bluff that crowns ancestral Troy. Now Talthybius is saying to the young boy Astyanax that you have to break that embrace of your mother. In spite of your mother's agony, you have to climb the walls of the highest bluff that crowns ancestral Troy. At that place, according to the vote of the army committee, you must give up your life. So Talthybius is telling us that that is the decision of the council. Take him then, someone tough and unthinking they need for this job, without pity and no scruples. I'm not half hard enough. So here, Euripides is actually retaining some decency and empathy. So he is saying that someone who is strong enough, please come and take the child, because I can't do this. So Talthybius actually speaks to Astyanax very sweetly before passing him to a set of Greek guards who carry the baby off stage. Talthybius explains that he is not the man for the job, and he has too much pity, too much shame to kill a child, and he exits after the guards. So Talthybius as I told you before, Talthybius is trying to retain some decency and empathy. Even though Astyanax is technically his enemy, he cannot kill him alone. However, despite his sensitivity, he allows the orders to be carried out because that's his duty and he is just a servant. He just needs to obey the masters. Hecuba, poor child, son of my dead son, to tear you like that from your mother and from me is wicked. How can I suffer this and learn to bear it? What can be done to help you now enduring this? We can only beat our breast in anguish, tear our hair, and that's all we can do. Our city is gone, and soon we will be gone too. There is no agony, and we don't already feel no abyss of pain to discover. So we could see the powerlessness of a queen. She was a queen and now she is just a slave who has got no power at all. And that's why she is saying to the child, poor child, son of my dead son, to tear you like that from your mother and from me is actually wicked. But she cannot stop that. She is powerless. How can I suffer this and learn to hear it? Learn to bear it, sorry. What can be done to help you now, enduring this? What can I do? I'm actually helpless now. We can only beat our breast in anguish. And look at the alliteration, beat our breast. We can only beat our breasts, powerlessness through that alliteration. Euripides is emphasizing the powerlessness of Trojan women and especially even the queen Hecuba. Tear our hair and that's all we can do. Our city is gone because our city is gone. I'm no more the queen. And soon we will also be gone too. So the powerlessness of the queen and the women of Troy can actually be seen here. Andromache, in the stage direction, it says Andromache is dragged out by the guards one way as Astyanax is taken the other. So that separation of the mother and the child is really horrifying and it is such an intense scene and that would destroy or that would make tears in any audience's mind, whether it be Athenian audience or even contemporary audience. So purgation, pathos. Our city is gone, and Trimake is dragged out by the guards one way as Astyanax is taken the other. So here, Euripides actually breaks this tension of that separation of mother and child by utilizing the chorus in their role as a storyteller, because we are going to see the second Stasimon. And the chorus's role is as if to be a storyteller. And being that by utilizing the chorus in their role as a storyteller, taking the audience into the past. So they are trying to take the audience into the past as they actually begin a monologue on the history of animosity between Greeks and Troy, as well as the gods' involvement. So they take us deep into the past for a moment because the present is too cruel to bear. And that's what we're going to see in the second Stasimon. It's called second Stasimon. So the chorus is actually singing, or the chorus sings a song about a previous attack on Troy. From the sea-fringed shore of Salamis, the island of beehives, that faces the sacred slopes where the first bough of the blue-grey olive was unveiled by Pallas, ancestor of the groves, that sit like a wreath of honor on the shining brow of Athens came Telamon, Salamis' founder, across the waves of the Aegean to destroy the ancient city of Troy. Telamon is actually the king. King Salamis is a largest Greek island, and Telamon is actually the king of that island. So came Telamon, Salamis' founder, across the waves of the Aegean to destroy the ancient city of Troy. So here we are going to see one of the stories where the Greeks actually came to destroy the ancient city of Troy. With the archer Heracles is Hercules, the greatest, one of the greatest of all the Greek heroes. With the archer Heracles in the distant past, when Greece first came to Ilium. So that is the first time when Greeks came to Ilium, Troy, to bring it to the dust, The flower of Hellas he led in his rage for the immortal horses of Zeus, first promised, then denied. Of Hellas he led in his rage for immortal horses of Zeus first promised, then denied. In the calm shallows of Simois they rested their sea-going oars, cast hawsers to make fast the sterns, while Heracles' mighty arm took the bow from his ship and killed Laomedon. Laomedon is actually a Trojan king. And with flashes of fire like a whirlwind, simile, and with flashes of fire like a whirlwind, shattered and burned the very stones of Apollo's city. Once in the past, and now again, Greek arms have brought Darnassus city to the test. So here, chorus is actually talking about something that has happened previously. And now they say that, and now again, the Greek arms have brought Darnassus city to the dust. Darnassus is actually the son of Zeus. So they are saying that Greek arms have actually brought Darnassus city to the test. So this is like something that has happened before. And the chorus is trying to say this story to us mainly to break that tensed scene where Andromache is separated from her son Astyanax. So the story is like this. The demigod Heracles or Hercules is actually a demigod. So the demigod Heracles made a deal to kill a sea monster that was actually attacking Troy. So Heracles agreed that I will kill the sea monster which is attacking your city of Troy. But there was one condition that the city's king should trade him horse. He should trade him some horses. Okay, so demigod Heracles was actually ready to make a deal to kill, and he made a deal to kill the sea monster which was actually attacking the city of Troy. But in return, the city of Troy or the king of Troy should give some horses. But what happened is he killed the sea monster. Heracles killed the sea monster, but the king Laomedon, that time the king of Troy, King Laomedon, went back on his word. He didn't obey his words. So he broke the promise maybe. So angry, Heracles was actually really angry, and he raided the city. He raided the city of Troy. So the chorus imagine how Laomedon's daughter, who was going to be actually sacrificed to the sea monster before Heracles killed it, must have must have felt as a city burned and the women it were killed as well. So that is the background story that they are trying to say, that the chorus is trying to say to us. So keep that in mind. So the horrors of the women of Troy are enduring in the place present, unfortunately, have a historical precedent. Okay, so this has actually happened before. So in the past, as in the present, the women and the buildings of the city itself were actually forced to pay the price for the failures of its armies and its men. So that's what Chorus is trying to tell us. Now again, that Stasimon continues. O Ganymede, son of Laomedon, as you step so delicately among the golden wine cups, pouring the vintage for Zeus, enjoying a favorite's privileges, what use are you to your city, as it rages in flames, and the Greeks bring carnage to the land of your birth? Is that the cry of seagulls screaming for their young on the seashore? No, women of Troy, wives for their husbands screaming for their dead sons, daughters weeping desperately for mothers too old to live slaves for long. So in this Stasimon is also referred to as Telamon Ode or even the Salamis Ode. And in this ode, the chorus actually recalls the first time Greek armies brought Darnassus city to the test. And that actually reminds the audience that this moment has a historical precedent. Okay? And they also recall that Troy was reborn and seemed promised in immortal destiny. Yet now they sit among its ruins again. So the women, they were really angry. They believed that the gods hate Troy, and that idea is repeatedly coming here. And that even Ganymede is actually a Trojan prince. Ganymede, a Trojan prince who was actually taken to Olympus to be the cupbearer of Zeus, can no longer help them. So even Ganymede had been taken away by Zeus, and even he cannot come and help. So the audience know that the audience knows that the chorus's belief that the gods have completely abandoned them is actually true, is pitifully true. So it was actually shown in the prologue. Even from the very beginning, the audience came to know that the gods are actually betraying them, the gods are abandoning them, the gods are of no help to them. So this ode does not only serve to be lament or serve to lament the death of the city, but it also talks about, it's another warning to the Athenian audience that great civilization rise and fall. And even that city thought to have an immortal destiny, even that city can be destroyed. So that is really important, and keep that in mind. Again, back to page 39. I'm going to repeat that again. No, women of Troy, wives for their husbands screaming for their dead sons, daughters weeping desperately for mothers too old to live slaves for long. So just before that, the Trojan women's cries are actually equated to the cries of seagulls. So the women's cries are equated to the cries of seagulls. And the chorus is trying to say that yes, it is the cries of women. They are mourning for their husbands. Wives are mourning for their husbands, for their dead sons. Some of them are weeping. Daughters weeping desperately for mothers too old to live slaves for long. Your pools for freshwater swimming that track away where you always loved to go running, all obliterated now. Everything is gone now. There's nothing pure. Everything is obliterated. Obliterated means reduced, nothing. While you were reclining serene in your beautiful, youthful beauty by the throne of Zeus, the Greeks were destroying Troy's people and Priam's city. So while Ganymede was resting, while he was reclining in the beautiful weather, Troy was actually, or Troy's people as well as Priam's city were actually destroyed by Greek city. And this happened long back. Now, love-consuming love once came to the palace of Darnassus, Laomedon's home. The gods themselves were trembling with the excitement of it, and Troy seemed promised an immortal destiny at the Olympian wedding of Tithonus with Aurora, the goddess of the dawn. Aurora is the goddess of dawn. Another name for Aurora is Eos, E-O-S. So Aurora, the goddess of the dawn, and Aurora's lover is actually a Trojan, and his name is Tithonus. Tithonus. No further reproach will pass my lips against Zeus or his doings. What's done is done. but the pure light of morning that cheers everyone saw destruction dawn on our city, saw our citadels collapse, and yet Aurora herself had a Trojan husband in her bed, was breeding children by him, after abducting him in her four-horsed chariot to enjoy her love among the stars. For us, vain dreaming, false hopes, the gods hate Troy. So the second Stasimon ends by the chorus's view that the gods actually hate Troy. So look at the contrast between the light and the dark. But the pure light of morning that cheers everyone saw destruction dawn on our city. So the light and dark actually play a role in expressing the antithesis. Antithesis means the opposite, that the end of war brings uh, an antithesis that the end of the war brings. So there is theoretically an end to the bloodshed, but while one side there is jubilee in victory and others is more pain, it's defeat for the other side. So that contrast between light and dark is very clear there. And Trojan women have no power. That's why they are saying for us, vain dreaming, false hopes, the gods actually hate Troy. So according to Chorus, that the sun rose on such a devastating day for Troy was actually the evidence that the sun actually dawned on such a devastating day. And that is actually a simple, or that is actually an evidence that the gods hate Troy. So while there was victory at one part, there was destruction or there was mourning and defeat at the other side. So Euripides is actually warning his audience, Athenian audience, that it is folly, that it is folly to engage in unnecessary conflict when the outcome is known only to the gods. So he's trying to show the hopelessness of war or the foolishness of war. That's what Euripides wanted to say to the audience, the foolishness of war. So the second Stasimon actually reveals how faith is tested in times of war. Definitely faith will be tested when we are suffering. And same way, the faith of the women of Troy have actually been tested in times of war. So the chorus's deepening sense of abandonment actually grows stronger as they see that their prayers are vain dreaming, false hope. So while they see that the gods are not helping them, their faith is actually tested, and their deepening sense of abandonment actually grows stronger. So keep that in mind, that it is really important. And Euripides is actually trying to warn the audience. That is the main thing. Euripides is trying to warn the audience about the folly of engaging in unnecessary conflict when the outcome is known only to the gods, where people are helpless. Now we are on page 40, and we're going to see episode 4 because there's a new character entering, and it is Menelaus. So Menelaus, even the sun shines brighter today, this most glorious of days when I shall finally get my hands on that wife of mine, Helen. Yes, I am the man, Menelaus, who for 10 years have endured this terrible war together with the Greek army. But it wasn't only for my wife's sakes that I came to Troy. People say that I know. My real motive was to get my hands on the man who stole my wife, violated the sanctity of my much loved home, treacherously deceived me, his host, and thumped his nose at every known principle of hospitality. So when Menelaus enters, he is immediately shown as a fatuous. What do you mean by fatuous? A stupid person, as a silly person. So he is shown as a fatuous, gloating man. And he is very insensitive to the suffering of Trojan women because he decrees that even the sun shines brighter today. So in his opening speech, Menelaus reveals that his actions have been actually driven by a desire for vengeance upon Helen as well as Paris, who not only violated the sanctity of his much loved home, but also his masculine pride. So he has come back. He is entering and he is claiming Helen, but at the same time, he makes his point clear that he has come for Helen and to take revenge on Paris. So he is in a very sunny mood and he stands in stark contrast to the miserable Trojan women. So he's excited he's excited to be reunited with his wife, who is actually Helen. So even after, and we could see how he is treating Helen later on in the next stanza. He also makes it clear that his real motive is to get hands on the man who stole his wife, and that is definitely Paris. So here Menelaus believes that it is better to fight a war under the pretense of punishing a man who stole property, and in this case it is a human woman. So dehumanizing her a lot. So then, and he's saying that it is better to fight a war under the pretense of punishing a man who stole a property than to fight a war um, on behalf of a said woman. So her attitude towards Helen is also clear there. Now, next part. Well, I have certainly made him pay for that. Now he's saying that, see, I have had my revenge on Paris. I've certainly made him pay for that with the God's help, of course. Of course, God's helped me in repaying him. And his people, him and his people, not just him, his people, not just Paris, but his people. The Greeks have butchered the lot and turned his great city, into a wilderness. So he's so happy and he's just boasting and he says that, see, I have taken my revenge on Paris because I've already killed him and his men, and his city is in complete ruin. It is in wilderness. It's turned into a wilderness now. But certainly, too, I have come to fetch the Spartan woman. But not only that, I've come also to fetch my Spartan woman, which is Helen. It gives me no pleasure to speak her name. And he doesn't even say her name, and he says that it gives me no pleasure to speak her name, the woman who was my wife. And again, he's treating Helen in a very different way, not in a respectful way anyway. The woman who was my wife, she has been counted into this temporary prison with the rest of the Trojan women. The Greek soldiers whose blood and guts have been tested and spent in so many battles to get her back have handed her over to me to kill her here on the spot, unless I decide to take her back to our Argive homeland, Argive to the Greece homeland. That's up to me. In fact, I have decided to pass up the opportunity of killing Helen here at Troy and to row her home to Greece, where she will be handed over to the relatives of all those who died at Troy to be executed in payment for their blood. So here, Menelaus says that, see, my soldiers have been handed her over to me, and it's up to me now whether to kill her here, whether to kill Helen on the spot. But it's all up to my decision. And now he says that I have decided to pass up the opportunity of killing Helen here in the Troy. His new decision is to take her back to his homeland, Greece. And he says that he is going to kill her there because she will be handed over to the relatives of all those who died at Troy to be executed in payment for their blood. But even though Menelaus says that that is his plan, we really doubt whether that was his real motive, or whether his real motive was to take her back and just leave with her. Get in there, you guards, into the building and bring her out here. Drag her out by the hair. Look at the power. We could see the power and control of Menelaus. And again, dragging her out by the hair, treating her like a property. Sticky with dead men's blood, the murderess calls her murderess. And as soon as the wind's in the right quarter, we will ship her off to Greece. And he says that as soon as the wind is in the right corner, we will ship her to Greece. That is his decision. So Eurydice is actually trying to show the power and the control of Menelaus even after Helen's humiliating public betrayal and 10 years apart. Menelaus still views her as a property to be reclaimed, and again the view of women as a property. Now Hecuba, O Zeus, who at the same time support the earth like a great pillar and sit throned upon it, unknown, unknowable, whether we call you a force of nature or an image in the mind of man, hear the prayer I offer as mysteriously unheard. You lead men's footsteps in the path of justice. So here, Hecuba takes a moment to invoke the gods. She is asking for help to the gods. So when Hecuba is taking a moment to invoke the gods, Menelaus says That's a new way to pray to the gods. That's a strange prayer. That's what Menelaus says. Hecuba, if you mean to kill your wife Menelaus, you will have my support. But don't see her. Don't risk becoming a slave of your lust again. With one look, she makes men's eyes her prisoners. She sacks whole cities, burns houses to the ground with that bewitching smile. I know her, and so do you. Everyone who has met her and suffered for it knows her well enough. Now, Hecuba feels no solidarity with Helen. Although they are now both enslaved women, both of them are enslaved, both of them are slaves, but Hecuba feels no solidarity with Helen. Instead, Hecuba sees Helen as someone who has actually disrupted the natural order of things and did not do her duty as a loyal wife to Menelaus, or even to her second husband, which is her own son, Paris. Although she does not believe the gods will help her, Hecuba is still praying to them. And that's why Menelaus says that it's a strange prayer. And her strange prayer asks for the status quo to be restored. She's asking the gods for the status quo to be restored and for Helen to be punished for the crimes Hecuba perceives her to have committed, all of which are related to a lack of honor and sense of duty. So Hecuba is actually praying to the gods. And that's why she says that if you mean to kill your wife, Menelaus, you will have my support. I will be supporting you if you have decided to kill your wife. But don't see her. But Hecuba is actually warning Menelaus, don't see her. Don't risk becoming a slave of your lust again. Because Hecuba clearly knows how Helen is. And she says that with one look, Helen can make men's eyes her prisoners. She sacks whole cities. See, the whole city of Troy was destroyed just because of her love and just because of her eyes, beautiful eyes. Burns houses to the grounds with that bewitching smile. So that's why she says that, or that is why Hecuba sees Helen as someone who has actually disrupted the natural order of things and suffered for it, knows her well, and do I know her, and so do you. And Hecuba says that I know really well how Helen is. I know really well. Everyone who has met her know how she is, and suffered for it knows her well enough. So please, Hecuba is actually begging Menelaus not to fall again as a don't become a slave of your lust again. So Hecuba is giving a warning to Menelaus here. Now enter Helen, guarded. So Helen is onto the scene, onto the stage. Page 42. Helen, Menelaus, if this is just the start, I'm terrified of what may come next. Your guards have dragged me out here in front of the building with such violence and contempt. You hate me, I know. I'm almost sure you do. But this one question I must ask you nevertheless. What have the Greeks decided? What have you decided to do with me? Am I to live or die? So here she can tell that Menelaus actually hates her by the way his soldiers have actually treated her. She wonders what he plans to do with her. That's what she wanted to know. She wanted to know, what have you decided to do with me? Am I to live or die? That's what Helen is worried about. Menelaus. Nothing definite was decided, but the army unanimously gave you to me, your wronged husband, to kill you. See, and Menelaus is making it clear that he says that although she has not been strictly condemned, she now belongs to him and he plans to kill her. Helen, can I speak in my own defense and show how unjust it would be to kill me if you do? So here, Helen is requesting Menelaus, her husband, can I speak in my own defense and show how unjust it would be to kill me if you do? So he just asking the permission to make her own points of defense. Menelaus, I've come for an execution, not an argument. So Menelaus makes it very clear that he has come here just for an execution and not for an argument. Hecuba, hear her, Menelaus. Let her speak. Don't let her die without a word in her own defense. And then let me make the case against her. What do you know of the havoc she has caused in Troy? Nothing. When I have had my say, read the whole indictment. There will be no room for any doubt that she is guilty. So here Hecubus too is actually supporting, and she says that let her speak. Menelaus, give her a chance. Let she talk, because Hecubus' intention is that there will be at the intention is to make Helen to show that she is actually guilty through her own talk. So Menelaus is actually reluctant, but at Hecubus' insistence, he allows Helen to speak. Hecubus' apparent support of Helen seems really odd. Yet, when considered in the context of a woman whose world is actually falling apart, it may be actually an attempt to restore a sense of justice in her increasingly chaotic world. She might be trying to achieve justice in her chaotic world. And Hecuba also wishes to argue with Helen in the hope that she can ensure Helen's death. So thus the women actually compete in rhetoric. Each woman will present a different version of the myths surrounding Helen and Paris, with the ultimate prize being Helen's life. So Menelaus, you are asking a favor, and that will take time. But if she wants to speak, that can be allowed. It's for your sake. Be quite clear that I allow it, not hers. Now Menelaus is actually respecting Hecuba and makes it clear to Hecuba that I will let her speak, not for her sake, but for your sake, just because of your request. Again, Menelaus is trying to show that he is not actually happy with Helen, but we could definitely see Menelaus having that love back, and how Menelaus treats her later on. Now let us see Helen on page 42. Helen, it probably doesn't matter if I speak well or badly if you have already decided against me. You won't even bother to answer. But if your accusations against me are what I think they will be, I shall answer your arguments with arguments of my own. So here we could actually see the artful sophistry of Helen. Have you heard the word sophistry or sophism? The word sophist actually it simply means clever person or a very skilled person. The term sophist actually comes from the Greek word sophistus, which actually means wise or wisdom. Sophist during that time was sophist means a specific kind of teacher in ancient Greece, especially in 4th and 5th century BCs. And they actually claimed that they could teach a person to win by sheer ability rather than by validity of their own claims. And see, that word it's an important word. It's a big word. That word has got lots of meaning. But only thing that you need to know here is the current meaning of the word sophism or sophistry. Sophism or sophistry means deliberate use of false argument, especially to trick some people. Or it's like a clever but false argument. So here, Helen's arguments are an example of sophism. Okay, so use that word, especially when you are writing a text response, try and use that word sophism. Sophism. And if you look into the sophism or sophistry, there are so many interpretations. There are so many meanings for that word, because it has been discussed by Plato, the ancient philosophers. So don't forget about all that. But only thing you need to remember here is it's like Helen's rhetoric. It's mainly like she's deliberately using false argument to trick someone. So you could say that this is an example of Helen's artful sophistry. Now, Helen refuses to take any blame for her actions or for the war itself, and now she is shifting the blame to other people. And she's very clever, and she stresses it one by one. And she says, first of all, this woman, Hecuba, she gave birth to all the trouble by giving birth to Paris. So her first blame is on Hecuba. And she says that Hecuba is the main reason for all this because she has given birth to Paris, who has actually taken me and brought me here. So the whole thing was mainly because of Hecuba. So she shifts the blame to Hecuba. Now, secondly, he destroyed Troy. Priam did, the old king, and he destroyed me too when he failed to strangle his brat at birth. Paris, Alexander, seeing in him as he did an image of that firebrand that would burn Troy. So her second blame is on King Priam. Why? Because he didn't bother to kill his son, even though he had a prophecy that he is going to destroy Troy. When I told you the background information, I told you about the prophecies regarding Paris's birth. So the story is like that. Helen is mainly referring to the legend that the destruction of Troy at Paris's hands was actually prophesied by one of Priam's son, who actually pleaded with his father to kill the infant Paris. So, but Priam didn't. As I told you in the backstory, Priam and Hecuba didn't kill the child. Okay, so that's what she is referring to here. So, secondly, he destroyed Troy. Priam did destroy the city of Troy. Why? Because he didn't bother to kill his infant son, to kill his son Paris, while even though he had a prophecy. So that's all what she mentions in that sentence. And then what happened? Listen, and I'll tell you. Paris had three goddesses in one harness and sat in judgment on their beauty. So here, thirdly, she is trying to blame goddesses. Not just three goddesses, especially one goddess, Aphrodite. And again, this story too I have told you in the background about the beauty contest where the three goddesses participated, Pallas, Hera, and Aphrodite. I hope you remember that, guys. So that's what she is referring to here. So listen, and I'll tell you. Paris had three goddesses in her harness and sat in judgment on their beauty. Pallas means Athena, goddess Athena, offered him the leadership. So each goddess did try to bribe Paris, who was actually the judge. So Athena offered him leadership of a Trojan expeditionary force that would take out the whole of Greece. That was a bribery of the first goddess. And then Hera promised that if he gave her the prize, he would become the master of Europe and the whole of Asia. So that was the second goddess Hera who actually tried to bribe Paris. And again the third. But Aphrodite, the goddess of love, Aphrodite simply and rapturously described how beautiful I was, promised him he should have me if he chose her as the most beautiful of the three goddesses. See, and the third goddess, Aphrodite, has actually promised Helen, who was actually the most beautiful woman in that, especially during that time, most beautiful woman, and she promised to give Helen to Paris. See, and that started the whole tragedy, and that's why Helen says that goddesses are actually responsible for this. See, look at her, look at the way she puts her argument, and she is very good at blaming others. She is very good at her sophistry, and she uses the rhetoric of using her rhetoric. She is trying to force everyone to believe that. Think carefully about what happened next. Aphrodite won the prize. And think what a blessing my marriage to Paris was to Greece. You are not under the heel of a barbarian conqueror, not defeated in battle, not totalitarian dictator has you at his mercy. But Hellas's good fortune was my ruin. But Hellas's good fortune was actually my ruin. Exported, I was sold off abroad. Look at the words she is using. I was actually exported from Greece. I was actually sold off abroad. My exceptional beauty was a saleable asset. Look at the words and phrases she uses. I was exported, sold off abroad, and I was a saleable asset for Greece. And now all I get is vulgar abuse instead of the respect and honor I deserve. I actually deserve respect and honor because I have been exported, I have been sold off, I have been sold abroad, and I was actually a saleable asset for Greece. See, you have to show that respect to me, but instead, you are just ignoring me and you are just abusing me. That's what she is trying to say. And look at the words, as I told you before, the words like exported, sold off, saleable asset. All these words actually indicates that she was actually an unwilling wife to Paris, forced into a form of slavery. So that's how she interprets that whole situation. So she's trying to change the whole scenario. And now all I get is vulgar abuse instead of the respect and honor I deserve. So here we could actually see a Helen who is actually Helen who begins to barter for her life. So that's why she accuses other people. She argues based on points she anticipates Menelaus will use against her. So she was so brilliant. That's why she's using, or she uses the arguments based on points she anticipates Menelaus will use against her. So she's thinking ahead. And then she accuses Hecuba, the mother of Paris. Secondly, he accuses Priam, the king, the father of Paris. And finally, she accuses all the goddesses, especially Aphrodite. And after all that, Helen is actually anticipating Menelaus's next argument. Definitely, the next argument is that she ran away of her own, with her own consent. Although she admits she did run away, it was because Paris came with Aphrodite at his side. She also pointed out that Menelaus had left her at home alone. Later on, she's going to say that. So her blame is shifting to different people. So that point is really important where she actually says that now all I get is vulgar abuse instead of the respect and honor I deserve. And Helen is anticipating Menelaus' next argument there. You will say, no doubt, that I have ignored the main point, the reason why I ran away from your home in secret. He came, call him Paris or Alexander, whichever of his names you like, that genius of destruction Hecuba gave birth to. Again, blaming Paris and Hecuba and saying that I didn't run off. I was actually exported because Paris came with the help of Aphrodite. Paris or Alexander, another name for Paris, came to me. And who is Paris? The genius of destruction Hecuba gave birth to. So Hecuba gave birth to Paris, who is actually Helen referring to as the genius of destruction. And with him came goddess, so with the help of goddess Aphrodite. Well, not exactly a weakling, as goddess go. And you, spineless idiot. Now she's blaming Menelaus. And you, spineless idiot. So that's reference to Menelaus. You chose that moment of all moments to leave your home and take ship for Crete. Now she's blaming Menelaus and she says that. Now you are also a part of this whole tragedy because you left me alone in my home. You chose that moment of all moments to leave your home and take a ship for Crete. Are you beginning to understand? The next question is the crucial one, and I ask it of myself, not you. What, if anything at all, was I thinking of when I tamely followed this foreigner whom I hardly knew, betraying my country and my home and my family in the process? So at this point, Helen is actually admitting that she did betray her country, but she doesn't dwell on it and she doesn't even apologize at that moment. And she sees this betrayal as actually a small crime, excusable as Aphrodite bewitched her. Aphrodite is the one who bewitched her. And she also mentions that on page 43, she also mentions that Helen argues that she was overwhelmed by Aphrodite's power. Aphrodite, the goddess of love, was very powerful, and I was overwhelmed by her power. That's what Helen says. And she also points out that just as she abandoned her wifely duties, Menelaus has even abandoned his duties as her husband because she left her alone. Sorry, because he left her lonely, more likely to elope with someone. So just left her, Menelaus left her alone, and that made her to elope with someone. So blame, look at the way Helen blames people, and the blame is directed towards different people. So that's why she calls men a spineless idiot. You chose that moment of all moments to leave your home and take ship for Crete. Now, after that, what if anything at all, was I thinking of when I tamely followed this foreigner whom I hardly know, betraying my country and my home and my family in the process? And look at the word, repetition of that word, my. She clearly knew that she has actually betrayed her country, her home, and her family. So, my country, my home, my family in this process. Ask the goddess, not me. Punish her. Punish the destructive power of love. So you have to punish Aphrodite, the goddess of love. She is so powerful. And in doing so, proclaim yourself superior to Zeus, who is the master of all the gods, but the slave of that one Aphrodite. Now you have to question Zeus, the superior gods as well, who is actually the master of all the gods, but the slave of that one, Aphrodite. Zeus is so connected with Aphrodite. So that's why she's not trying to say that you have to. That's why she's forcing Menelaus to go question Aphrodite, go ask her, not punish her, punish the destructive power of love. So that actually, in a way, indirectly, she is, or Euripides is trying to talk about the destructive power of love. The actual destructive power of love is also mentioned there. So look at the way Helen delivers her argument. Helen's arguments are actually delivered confidently as she exculpates herself. What do you mean by exculpate? Exculpate means presenting herself as innocence. So she tries to exculpate herself and she tries to shift the blame to others. And that's why she's blaming Hecuba, Priam, and even the goddess, and finally Menelaus as well. So although Helen's arguments are actually weak, it actually presents the notion that the events that led to the conflict are convoluted. The actual events that led to the conflict are actually convoluted. Many people have involved in it. So a simple attribution of fault is often impossible. That's what Helen is trying to say. You can't just blame me. There are so many people involved in this, and the events that led to this conflict are actually convoluted. So a simple attribution of fault is often impossible, and that's what she's trying to say. That being the case, what can you honestly do but forgive me? There is, I suppose, one further accusation you might make against me. Now, after making my points clear, I think there's one accusation that you would give me. You may accuse me for one thing. Once Paris was dead and in his grave, since my marriage was no longer the direct responsibility of the goddess, I should have left his house and made my escape to the Greek ships. Now, you may you may ask me, why didn't I try and escape after the death of Paris? God knows. I wanted to, and God knows how I tried. Ask the guard commanders at the great tower posterns. Ask the sentries on the walls. Ask them how many times they caught me lowering my clumsy body in secret from the battlements of Troy, or shining down ropes to reach the ground. So she is actually presenting herself as a helpless prisoner, and she says that she has been trying a lot to escape from Troy, especially after the death of Paris. So she's trying to even say that she has tried, and so she is actually presenting herself as a very helpless prisoner. But my new husband, Deiphobus is actually a Trojan warrior who took Helen as his bride after the death of Paris. So after the death of Paris, another Trojan warrior, Deiphobus, actually took her as a bride. So, but my new husband, Deiphobus, he's dead too. Took me by force, made me by his wife. All the Trojans were against it. Well then, husband, can you still think it right to kill me? So after hearing all this, Menelaus, my husband, can you think, can you still think it is right to kill me? Could you do such a thing with any justice? I had no choice. I was raped, not married. My life in Troy was the most abject slavery. Nothing glorious about it. And I have destroyed them. The gods have acted. Look at the emotive language she's trying to use. Helen says that I was raped, not married. My life in Troy was the most abject slavery, another emotive word. Nothing glorious about it. And using these emotive language, Euripides maybe is trying to show that or suggest that she is in the same position in Troy. Or at least Helen is trying to suggest that she is in the same position as that of other women of Troy. So she is in abject slavery. She is like a prisoner, just like the other women of Troy. And I have destroyed them. The gods have acted. Now she says that I have destroyed the Troy. The gods have acted. Will you oppose them? Only a fool would dare to do that. So will you oppose them? And she's actually challenging Menelaus there. Will you oppose them? Only a fool would dare to do that. So in this context, the play actually presented a protest against the rhetorical arts of the sophist. So Euripides is actually trying to present a protest He's trying to present a protest against all the rhetorical arts of sophist by presenting these kinds of skills as devious because of their ability to distract men from appreciating reason and following justice. So Euclid's his intention is to present a protest against these kinds of rhetorical arts or sophistries. And that's what that's what Euripides is trying to present. So the one thing that you need to remember is in every component of her story, Helen argues that she was actually a victim at the mercy of others. So she is trying to consider herself as a victim, just like the other women of Troy. So Helen is basically conceding that after Paris died, she could have left the city of Troy and joined the Greeks stationed outside its walls. And she claims that she did try. She did try and do that. And then Helen is finally challenging Menelaus, asking him if he would be stronger than gods. She hopes that, after all she has said, he cannot feel righteous in killing her. So Helen hopes to prove that she was not at fault, or at least not at fault enough to justify Menelaus' murder of her. And she tries to invoke his sense of right or wrong and make him question if killing her is actually truly honorable or not. So she's actually challenging Menelaus or making Menelaus to think about his decision, whether it's right or wrong. We could also see like that the Helen's view of herself as a heroic victim actually parallels that of Cassandra, who also envisions her victimhood as a means for vengeance. So there is a parallel between Helen's view of herself as a heroic victim, and that's paralleling with Cassandra's, who is actually a victim and who is envisioning vengeance for the family.